Glenn Morrison opened the cargo hold with surgical precision, staring at 15 crates worth $63 million, while Luis and three security personnel watched from the jungle shadows. The C-130's engines ticked in the humid Colombian air, and Glenn knew that in the next 18 minutes, he'd either complete the perfect operation or face elimination. "Take crates 7 through 14, Glenn whispered, his voice barely audible over the distant thunder. "Leave the rest exactly where they are." Luis stepped forward, confusion flickering across his weathered face. "Why not all of it, amigo? We agreed on the full shipment." Glenn's military training kicked in as he calculated the risks. Half the money had to reach the syndicate as planned. That was the only way to create ironclad evidence of the Defense Department's misconduct. The other half would fund his survival and the exposure operation that would bring down generals, defense contractors, and the entire $2.8 billion financial irregularities scheme. "Because," Glenn replied, photographing the serial numbers on specific bills, "I need proof of delivery to the actual recipients. This isn't just acquisition, it's evidence collection." The satellite phone in his pocket buzzed with an encrypted message from his automated systems. In 71 hours and 43 minutes, every major news organization in the world would receive complete documentation of Operation Nightfall. Unless Glenn entered the abort code, the evidence would surface automatically. Before I walk you through the full story, I just have a small favor to ask. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and let me know in the comments. What city are you watching from? It's always amazing to see how far this audience is reaching. Now let's get back to the story. But first, he had to survive the next 18 minutes. 6 hours earlier, Glenn had walked toward his C-130 knowing this final mission would either make him a whistleblower hero or a dead man. The encrypted satellite phone had buzzed at 0347 hours, Luis confirming coordinates that weren't on any official flight plan. "Pista secreta, 20 millones, Luis had whispered through the static. "Secret runway, 20 million. Glenn had stared at the manifest in his hands. Medical supplies to Colombia. Again. The 15th humanitarian mission this year, each carrying exactly 847 pounds per crate. He'd finally done the math during his insomnia-fueled analysis 3 weeks ago. 847 pounds of $100 bills equals $4.2 million per crate. 15 crates per flight, $63 million in cash, disguised as medicine for Colombian children. Glenn Morrison, 22-year Air Force veteran, had realized he was piloting the Pentagon's private cash delivery service to drug cartels. The cargo hold reeked of fear and diesel fuel. Ground crew avoided eye contact as they loaded the crates, their movements mechanical and rehearsed. Glenn pretended to inspect the cargo while secretly photographing the false medical supply labels with his hidden camera. "Everything standard today, Captain," Sergeant Rodriguez muttered, refusing to meet Glenn's eyes. "Standard," Glenn repeated, knowing Rodriguez had helped load these same suspicious crates dozens of times. "Just another humanitarian mission." Rodriguez flinched. They both knew Colombian children weren't getting medicine. They were getting resources, funded by American taxpayers through the Defense Department's black budget. Glenn climbed into the cockpit, his hands steady despite the adrenaline. 3 weeks of careful planning had led to this moment. He'd systematically accessed classified databases using his pilot security clearance, spending late nights cross-referencing cargo manifests with DEA intelligence reports. The pattern was unmistakable. Every flight coincided with syndicate leadership meetings. Every landing site corresponded to known contraband trafficking territories. Every medical supply delivery preceded major syndicate equipment purchases. He'd acquired the evidence methodically, downloading 847 flight records during minimal system monitoring windows. The files proved $2.8 billion in military syndicate cooperation over 5 years, hidden behind humanitarian cover stories. "Tower, this is Transport 77 requesting clearance," Glenn radioed, his voice calm and professional. "Transport 77, you are cleared for takeoff. Weather advisory, Hurricane Elena approaching Colombian coast. Recommend standard routing." Perfect cover. Glenn had planned this timing precisely. The hurricane would provide legitimate justification for course deviations and communication blackouts. As the C-130 lifted off, Glenn activated the encrypted satellite phone Luis had provided. The Colombian contact had been Major Vega's man before Vega's convenient training accident 3 months ago. Glenn knew Vega had discovered the same corruption and paid with his life. Luis, this is Phoenix. Glenn spoke into the phone using their predetermined code. Package is airborne. Confirm secondary location. Phoenix, coordinates confirmed. Storm cover acceptable. 30 minutes from your current position. Glenn switched off the military transponder, claiming electrical interference from the approaching hurricane. Air traffic control wouldn't question the standard weather emergency protocol. The next phase required precision timing. Glenn had studied the cartel payment schedule through intercepted communications. A 3-week intelligence operation that had consumed his every off-duty hour and pushed his technical skills to their absolute limit. It started 2 weeks ago during a routine supply run to Panama. Glenn had noticed unusual radio chatter on frequencies that weren't supposed to exist. Using the C-130 signal intelligence equipment, officially for monitoring weather communications, he'd begun recording encrypted transmissions between ground stations in Colombia and Venezuela. The breakthrough came last Tuesday night. Glenn had isolated himself in the base communications center, officially updating flight navigation software, but actually running military decryption programs on the intercepted signals. The software, designed for battlefield intelligence, cracked the cartel's encryption after 47 hours of processing. The decoded messages revealed a network more sophisticated than any Pentagon briefing had suggested. 3 cartel leaders, Miguel Santos controlling the Pacific coast, Eduardo Vasquez dominating the Caribbean routes, and Carlos Mendoza managing inland territories, were coordinating the largest weapons purchase in South American history. Santos needed $23 million for surface-to-air missiles capable of downing military aircraft. The same missiles that had killed 4 American pilots in Afghanistan were being sold to cartels through intermediaries in Eastern Europe. Glenn's stomach churned as he read the specifications. These weapons would turn every future humanitarian mission into a suicide run. Vasquez required $18 million for armored vehicles and heavy machine guns. The intelligence showed detailed purchase orders for equipment stolen from Iraqi military bases, now being funneled through corrupt Defense Department contractors. American soldiers had died protecting those bases, only to have their sacrifice twisted into cartel profits. Mendoza's $22 million would buy communications equipment and surveillance technology, the same systems Glenn used for navigation and weather monitoring. The cartel planned to create an intelligence network capable of tracking every military movement in South America, effectively making American operations impossible. Glenn had cross-referenced the payment schedule with DEA intelligence reports accessed through his pilot security clearance. The 3 leaders planned to meet in exactly 48 hours at a compound near Medellin. Without today's funding, the weapons deal would collapse. The European suppliers demanded payment within 72 hours, or they'd sell to Middle Eastern buyers instead. But Glenn's analysis revealed something more disturbing. The weapons purchase was defensive preparation for Operation Sangre, a coordinated cartel offensive against American anti-drug operations. Intelligence indicated the cartels knew about planned DEA raids scheduled for next month. Someone in the Pentagon was feeding them information. The intercepted communications showed the full scope of military cartel cooperation. American funds weren't just reaching cartels. They were funding active operations against American interests. Glenn had documented 17 separate instances where military intelligence had been sold to cartels, resulting in ambush patrols and compromised operations. Major Vega had discovered the same intelligence network before his death. Glenn found Vega's encrypted files hidden in the base computer system, accessed using codes the Major had shared during their last conversation. Vega had identified the Pentagon sources selling information to cartels, but died before exposing them. The most damning evidence was a recorded conversation between General Marcus Webb and Santos, discussing payment schedules and intelligence sharing. Webb wasn't just enabling cartel funding, he was actively coordinating with cartel leadership to maximize profits while minimizing American enforcement effectiveness. Glenn realized the scope of his theft's impact. By disrupting today's payment, he wouldn't just prevent weapons purchases. He'd force the cartels to expose their Pentagon contacts when they demanded explanations for the missing money. The entire network would unravel as each side blamed the other for the failed operation. The timing was perfect. Hurricane Elena would provide cover for his operation, while the cartel meeting deadline would create immediate pressure when the funds didn't arrive. Glenn had orchestrated a cascade failure that would destroy the corruption network from within. Without this funding, their planned weapons purchase would fail, potentially saving hundreds of lives and exposing the traitors who'd been selling American soldiers' lives for profit. But Glenn wasn't planning simple theft. He was orchestrating the perfect evidence trap. 20 minutes later, he began his descent toward the hidden airstrip Lewis had identified. The jungle canopy provided perfect concealment from satellite surveillance. Glenn's military training allowed him to navigate the treacherous landing without instruments. Lewis waited with 3 armed men and a smaller aircraft capable of carrying half the cargo. The operation proceeded with military efficiency. "Take crates 7 through 14, Glenn instructed, opening the cargo hold. "Leave the rest." "Why not all?" Luis asked, confused. "Because I need evidence of delivery to the actual recipients," Glenn explained, photographing the transfer process. "Half the money reaches the cartels as planned. The other half becomes proof of the entire operation." Luis understood. By allowing partial delivery, Glenn created ironclad evidence of military cartel cooperation while preventing the full weapons purchase that would have resulted in the civilian casualties. The transfer took 18 minutes. Glenn documented every detail, including the serial numbers of specific bills that would later be traced to cartel accounts. He created false manifests showing 8 crates destroyed due to hurricane damage, complete with photographs of burning empty containers. "The evidence package goes live in 72 hours, Glenn told Luis as they prepared to separate. "Every major news organization, Congressional Oversight Committee, and international court will receive complete documentation." Luis nodded grimly. He'd worked with Major Vega and knew the stakes. "What about you?" "Howard Grant, retired aviation instructor, moving to Uruguay," Glenn replied, showing his false identification. "Glenn Morrison disappears after this mission." The return flight proceeded flawlessly. Glenn re-entered official flight paths, reported minor cargo damage, and landed at the Panama military base with remaining crates and detailed incident reports. His performance was perfect. Concerned pilot dealing with weather emergency and minor cargo loss. But Glenn had stolen far more than money. During the hurricane emergency, he'd accessed mission planning computers using relaxed security protocols, systematically penetrating the Pentagon's most classified databases in a 48-hour digital heist that would ultimately topple the entire corruption network. Hurricane Elena had provided the perfect cover. Emergency protocols suspended normal security monitoring, allowing Glenn to access systems that would typically require 3 levels of authorization. At 0200 hours, while base personnel focused on storm preparations, Glenn entered the Mission Planning Center using his legitimate pilot credentials. The first system he penetrated was the Pentagon's Direct Planning Database, containing operational orders for the next 6 months. Glenn downloaded complete files showing Operation Nightfall's true scope. $500 million in planned cartel funding, disguised as humanitarian aid, counterterrorism support, and training assistance. The financial projections were staggering. The Pentagon planned to funnel $83 million monthly to 12 different cartel organizations across South America. Each payment corresponded to specific drug trafficking routes that would remain unpatrolled by American forces. The military wasn't just ignoring cartel activities. They were actively protecting them. Glenn accessed CIA liaison reports confirming the cooperation extended beyond money. American intelligence agents were providing cartels with real-time DEA operation schedules, ensuring drug shipments avoided interdiction. The reports showed 67 successful cartel operations in the past year, each one coincidentally occurring when American forces were deployed elsewhere. The witness elimination protocols chilled Glenn's blood. He found detailed lists of security-compromised personnel, soldiers, pilots, and intelligence officers who discovered fragments of the corruption. Major Vega's name appeared with the notation, "Training accident completed." Glenn's own name was scheduled for retirement processing after this final mission. Most damning was a recorded conversation between Defense Secretary Harrison and cartel financier Roberto Morales, discussing profit-sharing arrangements and territorial agreements. Harrison wasn't just enabling cartel operations, he was actively participating in planning them, treating American military resources as a private mercenary force. Glenn systematically compiled evidence packages for 73 news organizations worldwide, programming automated release systems to activate in exactly 72 hours. Each package contained different aspects of the corruption: financial records for investigative journalists, operational plans for congressional oversight committees, and legal evidence for international courts. The documentation process required military precision. Glenn photographed classified documents, copied encrypted files, and created redundant storage systems across multiple international servers. He established delayed release protocols ensuring the evidence would surface even if he were eliminated. The intelligence files revealed the complete scope of Operation Nightfall. $500 million in planned cartel funding over the next 6 months, with specific dates, amounts, and recipients that would allow investigators to trace every transaction and prosecute every participant in the conspiracy that had corrupted American military operations. More critically, he discovered the witness elimination protocols. Glenn's name appeared on a list of security compromised personnel scheduled for retirement processing. They planned to kill him after this final mission. The evidence package uploaded automatically 72 hours later. Congressional hearings began within a week. Glenn testified remotely from his new identity in Uruguay, providing detailed evidence that resulted in 156 separate prosecutions. 23 generals were arrested. The Pentagon's black budget underwent complete audit. $2.8 billion was recovered and redirected to veteran medical care. The entire military cartel cooperation system collapsed. 2 years later, Glenn Morrison officially died in a training accident. Howard Grant continued teaching aviation in Uruguay, watching news reports of reformed military policies and reduced cartel violence. The perfect crime, stealing a corrupt system's ability to function while saving more lives than it cost. Glenn had committed the ultimate theft. He'd stolen back honor itself. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.